This is the Military Bottom Line Podcast, episode 78.
After 6 years of serving honorably, I still owed $9,320 of the original $20,000 that the military was contracted to repay.
And they said they would pay 50.
Up to 50.
Welcome to the Military Bottom Line Podcast, where we learn from veterans and those currently serving how to make the most out of a military contract. We're here to motivate, inspire, and help you leverage your service to positively impact you professionally, personally, and financially during your military career and beyond. What's going on today, everybody? Today, I'm super excited to bring to you guys Juliet Lima. Juliet joined the military, the Army National Guard, after going to college because she found out about a unique opportunity to get some student loans paid for by her Guard contract. So she reached out to me about this because she learned a lot through this process. And this program, the Student Loan Forgiveness Program through the Guard, is pretty popular, and they offer up to $50,000 of student loan repayment. And so obviously, if you have a lot of student loans, this is a very enticing deal. And so she comes today with a lot of knowledge about her, experience, how to go about it and make sure it goes smoothly, because she was pretty much in the dark going through this process, and it's not quite a black and white, here's your money, here's your student loans paid down. There's actually a lot of work involved. And so if this is something that you're maybe considering pursuing, I highly recommend that you check out this podcast and listen all the way through the end, because based on her experiences with college, with finances, she's actually now kind of developed her own, YouTube channel where she's trying to educate people on finances and crypto of all things, because she's becoming very familiar with that and is excited about that future. And so she's learned a lot through her time in the military. She's out now and trying to spread the word and the wisdom. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Hey, Juliet, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Jason?
Great. Thanks so much for reaching out. I always love it when somebody that actually listens to the content has learned lessons along their time in the military, and they reach out just to share those experiences and lessons. So super exciting for me. I love hearing from you guys, and I'm excited to hear your story because I know that you've had quite the lessons learned throughout this process.
Yeah, I definitely have some things I'd like to share, but also thank you for having me on. Your channel has absolutely helped me get the most out of my military experience.
That's
so
awesome.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here now.
Cool. Thank you so much. Well, give us a little bit of a backstory before we get into it all. Like, who are you, where you're from, and how you ended up joining the military in the first place.
Sure. I'm from Ohio, and I'll start my story in undergrad. I was majoring in exercise physiology at Ohio University. I kind of thought I wanted to go into either physical therapy school or physician assistant school. So I picked that major because it was a good feeder into those programs. But like many of us, I was like, I don't really want to do this stuff. And I ended up I pushed through and I graduated, but I really just didn't know what direction I wanted to go. So I became a personal trainer for a while after college, which I loved it. It was an awesome job, but I realized it wasn't sustainable, and I was definitely open to other options, which is kind of where my military story comes in. Throughout college, I had been close with people who were in ROTC, and just hearing their stories about training and everything they were doing, I always kind of thought, oh, that sounds fun. I could do that. I'm a morning person. I'm pretty structured. And I like to work out. So I always had it in my mind. But then when I was personal training, I met someone who was in the Ohio National Guard. And this was the first time I got introduced to the idea that you could be in the military kind of part-time and also have a life on the outside, which I was like, okay, this seems very doable. That's when I went to go talk with a recruiter. I started with the Air Force, actually.
Active duty Air Force or the Air National Guard?
I was pretty certain I wanted to go Air National Guard.
Okay.
Um, just that's what I was more familiar with. Maybe thought it would be a better fit for me. But then I heard about the Army's Student Loan Repayment Program. And they were advertising that they would pay up to $50,000 worth of student loan debt. And at that time, I was pretty deep into student loan debt, working as a personal trainer.
Yeah.
So the military had already been on my mind, and I was just kind of like, that sealed the deal for me. And so then I wanted to go talk with the recruiter.
So because you reached out, and it originally had sounded like you pursued the military for the student loan repayment program, but you had kind of already been looking into it a little bit prior to that. But what swayed you? You were going to go for the good life in the Air Force.
Yes. And then better food, better housing.
Everything's better. Yeah.
Everything is better.
That student loan repayment plan really got you, huh?
Absolutely. It was just, this is a no-brainer. I had student loan debt and they were offering $50,000 repayment. Perfect. How different could it be? And so I went to go talk with that recruiter.
I'm curious, like, what did they advertise to you? Did they just say, like, sign the dotted line, here's $50K that goes straight to your student loans, or what was the
Yeah. After I heard about the program, I definitely went online, and I remember seeing somewhere on their website, the student loan, anyone who has student loans, hey, we'll pay you up to $50,000 of it. So I remembered that. And then I just went to go talk with a recruiter and kind of asked him more about it. And yeah, that's how it started.
Okay. Did you feel like you had a good grasp on like what the program actually was and what it entailed and, what the two sides of the agreement were?
I think this is the problem. This is where I went wrong is I didn't do enough research about the program. And I didn't think that I needed to really ask a lot of questions or try and find anyone who already was going through the program. And the first time I actually saw the student loan repayment contract was when I was at MEPS. After I had already taken the ASVAB, I had a job picked out. I was slotted for it. And so before I got to MEPS, though, I should say, my recruiter put the news to me. He said, hey, this will only cover federal student loans.
Which was what percentage of your loans?
About 40%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So before we get too into it, I'm curious with the other parts of your contract. Was this student loan repayment program available regardless of the job you signed on for?
No. Okay. Luckily, it worked out for me. The job I wanted to go into, it was attached with that option.
Gotcha.
But it was definitely not available for all jobs.
Okay. So you said, I want the student loan repayment, and they basically give you a list of jobs available with that as kind of an incentive.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
And what job did you end up going with?
I ended up going and becoming a 68 kilo, which is a medical laboratory specialist.
Okay. That sounds kind of in line with what you were going to school for, semi.
Taking all of the bachelor, the biology and chemistry classes. So I felt like it would be not easy, but it was, I'd already learned about a lot of that stuff.
Cool. And so that's a 6-year contract, right? Any guard contract is 6 years.
It's 6 years. Yep. Gotcha. 6 plus 2. So I'm currently in the IRR right now.
I hope you make it through.
I know. Crazy time to be in the IRR.
Yeah. So how did you, because you already had your degree at this point in time, did you feel like you had enough information to know that there were some options there? Like, I mean, it'd be between officer and enlisted. Like, was that on your mind as you were making up this decision as to which route to go?
Absolutely. I thought for sure I would go officer. I already had my bachelor's degree. Like I said, I knew people who went through ROTC, and but student loan repayment was not an option for the officer track. So that definitely guided me into
Gotcha.
this specific MOS.
So you were aware that the two options, existed. That the
Yes,
two
yes.
options did exist. Okay. So did you do any math or analysis to kind of decide like which one would be
Oh,
more
totally.
lucrative? You did. Okay. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, you can go online and just see kind of what your paychecks would be if you're an officer versus you go in as an E4 if you have a bachelor's degree. I just kind of did some rough math and I said, I think it would be more beneficial for me to get my student loans covered.
Gotcha.
And you never know how often you're going to be on active duty when you're going in the National Guard. So
very true.
It's hard to predict, obviously, what would be the better route. Going in with Student Loan Repayment Program, enlisted or going officer. It's kind of a gamble.
Okay.
But I ended up going enlisted.
Right on. So then how did your military time play out? Aside from the student loan repayment, how did those 6 years go for you? And what did it look like?
It's a good question. There were some highs and some lows. I feel like the military can just be so good, and then it can be ugly as well. I experienced that entire range of the spectrum throughout my military experience.
When was it good and when was it bad?
Yeah, I just remember my recruiter saying, "You're going to love to be down in San Antonio with this MOS. You're going to get to be down in San Antonio for 6 months. It's a very long training program, like 6 months phase 1, 6 months phase 2." But he's like, "Oh, you're going to love it down there." And I got down there and it was absolutely miserable. I don't know if you've heard about Fort Sam, if you know anyone who's been down there recently, but it was way worse than basic training.
Really?
As far as, I went through basic training. I was actually an honor grad. Nice. I think I did really well. I enjoyed it. I mean, obviously there are challenges and things that are, but I was just knew this is basic training. But yeah, San Antonio was not fun at all. It felt a lot more like I was being locked up.
Really?
Yes.
Just because like the command was brutal or because?
Yeah, I just think that you're still in TRADOC. So but there wasn't a lot of oversight, it felt like. And the people who were in charge just maybe weren't the best they weren't the best leaders at all.
Wow.
Probably people who shouldn't be in leadership roles. So that was not good at all. But then my phase 2 of AIT, the other 6 months, was the best military experience I've had. I got to go to DC and just be in DC without having to worry about rent or any of that stuff. I had, and I had a lot of free time. Cool. I could go see all of the museums, just all the different neighborhoods. And I got to meet so many awesome people in DC, in the military and out of the military. So it was just like night and day, all within the same training program.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely, kind of like civilian employment where like, it's usually the boss or the management that kind of makes or breaks a employment opportunity. It's the same thing with the military. Like if your leadership sucks and they can make your life miserable, whereas if, the leadership and the management is pretty good and things are laid back, then it's good living. But
in the civilian world, you go home at night.
That's true.
Whereas in the military world, that's it. There's no escape from that. So if it's a bad situation, you're just locked there.
What did you do to overcome that? Because a lot of people find themselves in pretty miserable, training cycles, or everybody has a miserable period within their contract. What did you do to overcome that mentally?
I guess just spend as much time as I could on my computer and, just read, like just hearing people from outside that environment, talking with friends, talking with family, listening to podcasts. And it was a lot of just waiting, to be honest. I couldn't yeah, you're just 6 months until June 15th. You're just there.
Yeah. Yeah,
So.
it's funny. I mean, I don't think the parallel to like being in prison, I've never been to prison, but like I kind of, people draw the parallel between prison and the military, and like there
do
are
other people draw that parallel too?
Yeah, you hear it from time to time.
Yeah,
and it's funny. I was listening to a podcast about convicts basically going through a transition period after getting out of prison, and I'm like, this sounds a lot like what people talk about after getting out of the military. Like, there's definitely some similarities here.
Well, there were, first of all, sleep deprivation. I never slept more than 6 hours a night.
Wow.
And on all of our pods, there were alarms. If you'd open the door, these alarms would go off, and everyone had to do fire guards. So the alarms would go off every hour.
Oh my gosh.
I was
in the barracks?
It was way worse than basic training.
Wow.
Yes. Just always having to like move rooms. I had 3 different roommates, and I understand why people can compare it to prison.
Did you have any second thoughts like during that time period where you're like, oh my goodness, what?
Of course. So of course if it was easier to quit, I definitely would have.
Interesting.
Yes. Especially
like, because it's kind of easy to quit. I mean, quitting is easy, but the process to get out is pretty, like, it's not going to be in your best interest for sure.
I knew that if I said I wanted to get out, I would have been there just as long.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I just had hope that it would be better.
Yeah.
And it ended up being better, thankfully. But I think that's the reason why I ended up going through with it, is because I knew that if I said I wanted to get out, it would have taken maybe longer to leave that place.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the whole time in the back of my mind, I'm just listening to my recruiter tell me, you're going to love San Antonio.
Oh man. Yeah. So almost roughly a year, a little bit less on basically active duty for training between basic and your schooling.
It ended up being, through basic and AIT, it was 16 months.
Wow.
14 months AIT and then 2 months for basic. It's a long training program.
Wow. Yeah, that is long. That is long. Yeah. And then after that, you get sent back to Ohio on traditional 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year kind of thing. It's
kind of crazy. You go through all of that training, and then I actually got to my unit and realized that I won't really be doing the job that I trained for at all.
Yeah.
Which was definitely frustrating as well, getting there and just having this realization of what I just went through. Yeah. And then being like, oh, they haven't touched the lab equipment in years.
Crazy. What'd they have you do then?
So that's like serious. That's another just like, wow. Okay. I was in a medical unit, so I would often just sit into the trainings for the whiskeys, the EMT, what are they called in the military?
Docs, medics.
The medics.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The medics. So I'd often just be in training with them.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there were only 2 lab techs in my unit, and we would just kind of hang out.
Yeah, I imagine, the mindset's a little bit different going into the guard, kind of straight out of the gate, where it's like, I remember when I joined, like, I didn't really care how long things took, because it's like, it's 4 years, it's 4 years, whatever, But when you're in the guard, you're kind of looking forward to like, okay, like I'm gonna go back to my normal life and do this part time. Like I would think that there would be a difficult pull there to be eager to like go back to regular living.
It was good. It was good for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It felt right at that time.
Okay, good. So once you get back to Ohio, are you? I mean, what year is this at this point? It's not COVID time yet.
No.
You had some time between.
I joined in 2015, so it was 2017-ish at this point when I got back to Ohio, and I'm transitioning from being on active duty for a while to back to civilian life full time.
Did they use you? I mean, did you do much between 2017 and 2020?
Nothing.
Nothing. Standard 1 week a month, 2 weeks a year.
Once COVID came,
Yeah.
that totally changed. And that's actually something I'm really thankful I got to be a part of. And I felt like I did get to experience being in the military and being on a mission, being on active duty. But until COVID, just 1 weekend a month.
Gotcha.
AT over the summer.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Pretty easy.
Yeah, pretty easy. Health insurance covered and just 1 weekend a month. I definitely recommend the National Guard, especially if you're kind of on the fence about it. Because it's just 1 weekend a month. I mean, there are a lot of online trainings that you have to do in the middle of the month. There's always online trainings.
Yeah.
You're always thinking about it, but it's not a big time commitment.
Sure.
And you always have the opportunity I had the opportunity if I wanted to go with another unit somewhere and go on a mission, which is nice.
That's cool. That is cool. I mean,
absolutely.
Having the option, which is not always the case in the Guard, but typically the Guard is like, you get more options than you do active duty. Active duty, you get told, and Guard, they ask for volunteers first before, ordering people. So
that's something I think is great.
Yeah. Yeah. What did your COVID missions look like for you? What did you guys do?
So I was working in a restaurant at the time, and I got a call on Monday, and they said, "We need you to be in a prison tomorrow."
In a prison?
A prison. Yeah, it's my first COVID mission. I went into a prison, and they had a big COVID outbreak, and they wanted one lab tech to come help out in their lab. They had an Abbott test machine, and this was when they first started doing COVID testing. So I got to work in their lab, which was nice to do the job that I trained for. And
did you feel a little rusty after those 3 years?
Of course, yeah. Like I think on the phone when they called me, I said, "I haven't done this in 4 years now." They're like, "That'll work." So
you were the only guardsman sent to the prison, and so you were working with civilians primarily?
It was really interesting. I think there were probably 20 Guard and Army, but I was the only lab tech, and it was really early in COVID, so we're just keeping us all very separated, and the lab was off in a totally different section of the prison. So, and then on top of that, we were staying in a hotel where I would be in my own room. So it was I was just by myself going into this prison. I'd go to work in the lab, come back, just be in my room.
Yeah. Well, that's like back in the beginning when times were weird, and you probably appreciated that.
Oh, totally. I was very cautious. Yes.
Yeah.
It was in the beginning. No one had any idea what was going on. And
did you know, I mean, so for us, like we didn't really know how long the orders were going to be for. What was that like for you? Was it just kind of like, you're going there and we'll let you know?
I had no idea. I had to tell my employers, "Hey, I'm leaving and I have no idea when I'm coming back." Maybe 30 days, maybe longer.
Yeah.
Pretty frustrating. They ended up cutting the order short. It was 29 days instead of. Oh
my gosh. So many people got duped like that. Wait, is it 20? What's the cutoff for 30? I can't remember what you get at 30 days as far as benefits go.
BAH.
Oh,
like the better one, where it's significantly more. And then I also, I can't remember if you qualify for more education benefits or not, if it's more than 30, but there's a lot more benefits after 30 days.
Yeah.
And
I know you need 90 days of active duty. It doesn't have to be consecutive to get 50% of the GI Bill. And I know our state cut a lot of people shy of the 90 days. And it's just like, that's just messed up, dude. Come on.
I'm very thankful. I got another opportunity to go on active duty much later into COVID. And then that ended up being I'm at 60% GI Bill right now. So it was a while that I was on active duty. And a mission that I just love doing.
Awesome.
Another highlight of my military experience. So it didn't end at the prison for me.
Okay. What was the good mission?
Yeah, I got to work at a food bank, and
nice.
I got selected to be on the distribution team, which was pretty cool. It was only 10 or 12 of us. And our mission every day would be to take all this fresh, beautiful produce to different pantries all over the state of Ohio.
No kidding.
So a lot of the time we would just be like loading up in vans and driving sometimes 2 hours away to a smaller pantry. And then we'd set up and just put all the stuff in bags and divide it up for all of the customers of the pantry, and we'd get to hand it out to them.
Cool.
And it was awesome. I often think, I hope that my future jobs are as awesome as that. It was just great helping people. I was outside, like a little bit of physical activity, nothing crazy, but I felt like I was just out and moving, and
that's awesome.
Awesome.
Making a difference, humanitarian missions kind of stuff. Yeah. Super.
It was,
cool.
To get to be a part of that was great.
That's awesome. So I'd love to get an idea, like kind of now that we've kind of seen a big picture of your military 6 years. Mm-hmm. You joined primarily at this point for this college loan repayment program. And so we just kind of went through the timeline of your career. How does the timeline of this student loan repayment program coincide with your career?
We should probably start with how it's supposed to happen.
Okay, that's a great.
Let's start there. In the contract, it says they will make payments every year on your anniversary day. So if you have a 6-year contract, they will pay 15% every single year on your anniversary. Now, if you're doing the math, that's 90% of your student loans. Which
I was gonna say, I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Why would it be 15?
Yeah, it doesn't add up to 100. But I definitely asked about this, and they said at the end of 6 years, it will all be taken care of. So yeah, the first year rolled around, and I was in training, actually at Fort Sam in Texas, San Antonio, and this is on my mind. I knew I had to do this, fill out all the paperwork that you have to fill out. And despite the fact that I couldn't walk anywhere without a battle buddy, I had 0 free time. I made it to the library and I printed out all the forms that I had to fill out, and I submitted them. And I submitted them to my readiness NCO in my National Guard unit. But turns out that was not the way to go. She actually didn't know anything about the student loan repayment program.
Oh, gosh. So who told you to do it this way? Like, was it based on what your recruiter said a year prior?
That was the only person I had contact information for, because I was just in training. I never had met anyone in my unit. The only person I knew was my recruiter, and then this readiness NCO.
Wow.
So I said, we'll start there. And I send it to her. So yeah, every year you have to fill out a lot of paperwork, and I definitely, just for people, if they're in the military with this program, I would like to just kind of break down what you have to do every year. Cool. Maybe.
Cool.
The first form that you have to fill out, it's called a DD 2475. Now, in my contract, it says that you can fill this out and submit it within 90 days of your anniversary date. I would get it rejected every single year if it wasn't within 30 days, just so you know. So submit it within 30 days. And
plus or minus, like before or after your anniversary date?
I think it's either way.
Okay.
I would always submit it before, because I'm like, I want this repayment. I was always, okay, how soon can I send this? And then you also have to submit a national student loan data summary sheet, which we have to talk about this because it's crazy. You have to go on to, if you have federal student loans, there's this portal that you never knew existed, but you have to create an account through National Student Loan Data, the system. You have to go on a specific browser and export each individual loan that you have, like in a very specific way, and then compile all of that information into a PDF. And then you have to submit both the national and SLDS sheets and this DD 2475 every year. But you do not want to submit them to your readiness NCO unless they have experience with this, because they'll never go anywhere if you just send them to them.
So you weren't like communicating with your readiness NCO prior to this, saying like, "Hey, I know this is coming up." Like you were convinced like that. I know what I need to do. I'll make it happen when the time comes. And
I sent him, and I'm sure I said, if there's anything else I need to do on my end, please let me know. It's just a problem. There's not a lot of knowledge about this program, and you don't have direct communication with the person who is making those payments. So it can definitely be frustrating. I figured out probably 3 years into this who the person in the state is that makes these payments. And
did you know anybody else like doing this program with you?
I met 2 other people in my unit who had the Student Loan Repayment Program. So we were kind of all coming together and, what did you find out?
Everybody's struggling.
Just bouncing ideas off of each other.
Wow.
But everyone was struggling for sure. At least in Ohio. Again, this could be different in your state, but there just wasn't a lot of communication about where I was supposed to submit this information that I needed to submit in order to get the payments every year.
Wow. Okay. So the readiness NCO ended up not being the person to communicate with and send this to.
No. Which is because the chain of command, you have to go through your chain of command for almost everything. Yeah. And your readiness NCO is usually one of those first points of contact. Whereas this, I would recommend abandoning the chain of command. It doesn't matter like what the rank is of the person, but you have to find that person in the state.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, it's not like popular to say, but there are times when it's like in this kind of thing where administratively you just gotta get crap done. And you know that if you got to pass it through 20 people, it's going to get lost. So it's kind of like,
right.
You got to do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do, especially when it comes to like, okay, I need to have this in by this date or else then they won't make the repayment.
And that, like, basically if you didn't make it in time, they would just skip that payment on your first year and you wouldn't get it.
Yes. So I didn't see any repayment money for 2+ years.
Oh my goodness. Were you freaking out?
Of course. Yes.
Oh my goodness. It's like, I am here because of this, like for this deal. And you guys aren't holding up on your end of the deal. Unreal.
And I found out it was because the paperwork didn't make it to the right person. But yeah, I didn't see any repayment money for well over 2 years.
So, and in those 2 years, you're still accruing interest, right?
This is absolutely something I'd love to talk about. Yes.
Okay. So, and then, and if this is too personal, you don't have to answer it. Like, were you paying during this time, or were you like, they're going to take care of it? Let me take care of my private loans.
A lot of people advise that you make the interest payments, but I saw in my contract that they were contracted to pay $20,000 plus interest. I said, I'm not making any interest payments. Yeah. This is in contract that this is what's happening. So I didn't. You have to put your loans on forbearance, very specifically forbearance, so that you can still accrue interest, but it won't wreck your credit score if you don't make any repayments, which is super important. And that's a form that you have to fill out annually in order to get that
with
status.
Your federal student loan, whatever. Like
all of the other paperwork, those other 2 things. You also need to contact your lender, which is a government lender, and tell them and ask them to put it on forbearance. Because if it's in deferral, and you don't make the repayments, you'll still accrue interest, but then you'll wreck your credit score if you don't make any repayments on the interest.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you are not paying towards your federal student loans. You have it in forbearance. You're working to get this stuff like taken care of, squared away, because the Army says they're going to be paying 20 grand plus interest. You're like, it's taken care of. I'm good.
So my loan balance got up to $2,150 because no one was paying on it for 2 years.
Over those 2 years.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And
which was really stressful.
I can imagine. And so like what happens at that point at 2 years? 2 years of struggling through this paperwork. And I imagine, like, ordinarily you would submit the paperwork on your, rather not ordinarily, but ideally you would submit the paperwork on your first anniversary. You'd see a big payment. You'd be like, okay, cool. Let me not do anything for another year, and then I'll do it again. But now it's 2 years, and like you're constantly working on this.
Right. And I was just behind before I found the person in Ohio who makes the repayments. But when you're getting these repayments, the repayments are $1,000 or $2,000.
What?
They're just tiny. So the repayments get taxed at a very high rate.
No way.
By the time anything goes down in your loan balance, it's the first repayment got made, and I'm where I started at $20,000.
No way.
Right.
So
yeah.
So at what rate is this taxed?
I'm guessing somewhere around 30%. And the reason why I say that is because, well, I'll say this. After 6 years of serving honorably, I still owed $9,320 of the original $20,000 that the military was contracted to repay.
And they said they would pay 50.
Up to 50. Yes.
Up to 50, and they basically paid like 11-ish.
Yes. Now, I will say that after lots of emails and lots of communication, they did make a large repayment after my 6-year contract was over.
That's shocking.
When I checked my balance, I said, wow, because I'd been fighting and just so hard to get this repayment money. And I do wonder, would I have gotten that large repayment if I wasn't on active duty I extended my contract past the 6-year mark.
Okay.
Because I was on that
to come through.
That absolutely. And I was on that mission with the food bank that I loved. And so it just kind of made sense.
Gotcha.
Let's continue. Hopefully I will somehow get this repayment money. But the reason why I think that it gets taxed at 30% is because I still owe $2,500. So if they made that $9,000 repayment that I still had, and then they tax it at 30%, I would be left with approximately that $2,500.
And so, because they're not supposed to pay it off completely, I don't understand.
It's very confusing, right? Like, why wouldn't you just pay that all off?
Yeah.
And here's the thing that gets me also. It's government money that never is in the service member's possession. That's repaying a government bank account. So how does their taxation there? It's not like it's not the same as a bonus.
Yeah.
You know, when people sign and they sign for $20,000 bonuses, I get it. You're physically getting that money, but I'm never seeing this repayment money.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the fact that it's taxed is very, very surprising to me. I mean, like, because it's not income, it's not bonus, like GI Bill isn't taxed. Like, where's the logic? That doesn't make any sense.
I definitely want people to know this, that it's going to be taxed heavily.
Do you feel like you got scammed?
I definitely feel like I got misled. And
okay.
I've been thinking of, of different outlets. Like, how can I help other people so that this doesn't happen to them, or at least their expectations are managed. Because I was just super disappointed, super frustrated with myself, for obviously like signing this contract. And then, I definitely feel misled.
It's interesting because I mean, I don't know. The whole student loan thing is just, it's something else. But like every program that is out there that supposedly pays back student loans, like I made a video on the public service loan forgiveness, whatever it was, and how military service now qualifies for, whether if you're like doing like working for I don't know, like a nonprofit, there are certain employment scenarios where that time would go towards loan forgiveness. And it's something like 3% of qualified applicants are actually approved. It's criminal. It's criminal. And it's like,
it's criminal.
I've never heard of any successful loan repayment.
Yeah.
The only successful loan repayment is just to not go into debt for student loans.
And these are people who are in service, government service positions, building time.
Yeah.
And all, they just thought that they were going to get their student loans paid off, and 3% end up actually getting their student loans repaid.
Man. So you made the decision to enlist in the Army, not the Air Force, and enlist instead of commission, because you were like, okay, I'm like 50 grand. I'm using that as my, as my constant as to what I should expect over my 6 years. Like, okay, this makes more sense. And at the end of 6 years of enlisted time in the Army, you got like, 10 or 11.
In total, it was probably about 17.
Oh, okay.
After it was all said and done.
After that lump sum. Okay. Gotcha. But they still left you with.
Still left me with $2,500 to repay. After serving honorably, I had a 300 PT score. Always on time. And so, it was frustrating for sure.
I mean, at this point, I imagine you're kind of like, cut your losses, like, 2,500 is like not bad compared to 20, but, it just sucks because it's like, that wasn't what wasn't the agreement,
especially when you see the Air Force with all these nice meals and they're getting hotels and you're in a rusty bunk bed.
Have you pretty much just kind of like called it at this point?
Oh, of course, because I had to eventually say I've spent so much time on this, and eventually just look for other ways to try and make peace with it. I contacted the Inspector General. I've contacted everyone I could think to contact, and it's just
How did it work out for the two other people that were doing this program with you?
Sure. One of my good friends, one of my closest friends in the military, she still owes a lot of money on her student loans. Much more than I think she helped me a lot so that I didn't fall as behind in her repayment process as she did. But she was the very first person, I think, that at least I knew of, who had the program. So she was completely on her own.
Wow.
And therefore, when she got out, she has thousands and thousands of dollars still in debt. And then I think the other person in my unit with the program, about the same, owes still at least 10% that they have to repay.
Plus the private side of it.
Oh, yeah. Plus all of their private student loans that don't get covered in this program.
Wow.
For sure.
Wow. Do you think that you do you think you would have stayed in if this program went well?
To be honest, no.
Okay.
The National Guard, I understand that we're often just waiting for something, like a reason to be called to help. But also for me, it was just frustrating in how my time was being used in the National Guard.
Yeah.
I feel like we could easily be helping at a local food bank on the weekends after our training is done. Or doing a local 5K together, or just doing something.
Yeah.
Whereas oftentimes in the National Guard, you're just not doing anything. And
man,
it just gets old. It just really feels like all I'm giving is time.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're being compensated, but it just kind of drained me eventually to not have any sort of purpose, to not be doing anything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, I'm always just curious because it's kind of, just curious about like retention things, and it's like, if they are losing people from staying in because they, they didn't hold up their end of the bargain and that kind of thing, it's kind of like, all right, that's should be an easy fix kind of thing. Do you like, after it's all said and done, do you regret the route you took? Would you have done anything differently? No? Okay.
No way.
All right.
Overall, I did have some just great experiences. I shared being able to live in DC. I absolutely love that. Being able to help out on that food bank mission. I met incredible people, lifelong friends, getting to travel around, and no way. I don't regret it at all.
Good.
I think everything works out for a reason. So
yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I before we get too far away from it, I just want to make sure, because I know I have a tendency to interrupt, and so I know you had like specific things you wanted to make sure that people understood about this program.
Yeah. And so, like, for people who are thinking about joining, just know that you're gonna have to do a lot of work, and it's not as clear cut as they might make it seem. Also, if you're thinking about joining, this was something that I didn't know either, is if you already have a bachelor's degree, you're going to get disqualified from being eligible for other benefits, education benefits. For instance, there is an Ohio National Guard scholarship, whereas that provides 100% free tuition in a either public or private school undergrad. That you are
private too.
There's some sort of program to help pay for that, for sure.
Interesting.
But if you have a bachelor's degree already, you can't use that at all. Also, the Student Loan Repayment Program will probably disqualify you from getting any sort of bonuses. So if you have the option to get a straight up bonus, definitely take that. It's much more straightforward.
Interesting.
I just ran through my notes. I took some notes.
Yeah.
We talked about the paperwork that you have to fill out. Loan interest, we covered that. So I think those are all the things I wanted to get out.
That's fantastic insight, because I'm fortunate the way that I feel like I'm happy with the way I went through it. I enlisted active duty first.
You're in active duty.
Yeah, where it's like, okay, tuition assistance, GI Bill, like, it's all like, there's no loans here, thankfully.
Yeah.
And so, like, I mean, I don't know. If somebody's going to join the military for education, I think that it's always better to have the education, like, as part of the contract, like, whether it be ROTC or whether you enlist and get active duty, like, but then again, now we're kind of like saying it was part of your contract, but you kind of got duped, so it's not even a foolproof plan, really. And I'm just trying to best to articulate for somebody that's trying to get college paid for through the military. Like, I've never heard anybody not get the GI Bill after active duty unless they got in trouble.
Right. That's definitely your safest bet. If you go to National Guard, you're not guaranteed to be getting those 90 days on active duty. Like, you could say yes to a lot of opportunities, but then your orders get cut short at 89 days. Yeah. So that's a very real possibility. If education is super important, then maybe 4 years of active duty is the better route.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because it seems to be that states and National Guard education benefits are kind of improving around the country, because I mean, like, I know previously it was like tuition assistance kind of thing. It's like, here's $4,500 a year for tuition, which is like garbage. That covers like 2 classes,
Yeah.
And now like more and more students, like you said, Ohio has like the Ohio Scholarship, where if you haven't done undergrad yet,
Right.
I know Vermont has that. I know New Hampshire has something similar to that.
Okay.
And so a lot of these states are kind of recognizing that they have to do more for tuition. And so, yeah, just kind of like, I don't know. Yeah. Would you have held off on on your undergrad if you knew you could have gotten it paid for a different way? Or have you ended up using your undergrad education at all?
What was that last question?
Have you ended up using your undergraduate education at all, or have you kind of gone a different route?
I'm going in a different route. Yeah, it's the tuition assistance program in Ohio is awesome, and you don't have to spend 90 days on active duty to get that.
Yeah.
It really just takes so much research because every state is wildly different, and everyone's situation is different. So this is not something to just jump into. Yes. Do a lot of research.
Yeah.
Because there are amazing benefits, but you have to know about them, and you really have to be proactive and make sure that you get them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard because it's like, it's intimidating. Joining the military is super intimidating. And then you start like actually trying to read all the contracts that they make you sign. And you're like, dude, like, let's be real. You can't read them all,
No way.
There's definitely a leap of faith. And
there's totally a leap of faith. And the person who's probably joining the military is probably pretty trusting.
Yeah.
That it's going to work out. But that's why I love this podcast so much, is because you break it down. You have people who have gone through this and are sharing their experiences. So I think that's the best way to learn about. You're not going to understand your military contract.
Yeah. Yeah. Most people don't. And that's okay. You only have so much control, and you kind of just sign up and hope for the best is really what it comes down to.
And hope for the best.
Yeah.
Great.
That's where the adventure is.
Yes, totally.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Juliet, for coming on and sharing your story. What are you up to these days? And like, how can people reach out to you and maybe get more advice if they're going through this struggle right now?
For sure. So around that same period of my life where I was in a bunch of debt, and also I realized I just kind of signed this military contract that is different than I thought it would be. I said, this isn't working out for me. I need to really just improve my financial literacy. And I started learning a lot about finance and just banking and taxes and lending and all that jazz. And then that's about the same time that I got introduced to cryptocurrency. And I now, when I got out of the military, I kind of said, like, what's next? I started making YouTube videos about cryptocurrency.
No kidding.
So that's kind of my main focus right now.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Cool. What got you excited about crypto specifically?
Yeah. I think I was in a position where I was perfectly primed to be enthusiastic about an alternative system, about a technology that empowers people financially. So I was just, when I heard about it, it just felt cool. It felt right.
Are you on the NFT train too?
That's such a wild game. No, I don't. I'm not too into NFTs.
Okay.
No.
Cool. What's your YouTube channel's name that people can come find you?
Yeah, just Juliet Lima. So
Juliet Lima.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You'll be able to find me there.
Cool. Well, yeah, definitely. Everybody go subscribe to Juliet's channel.
Yeah, and, come on over.
If you want to talk about crypto, I gotta
break it down.
I'm not like a crypto dude. Like, I don't know.
You're not.
Like, I dabble. I throw like $10 a week into Bitcoin because it's like whatever, sure. But I don't know. I just I think people are pretty excited about it. I don't know. It's
worth learning about.
It seems a little trendy for me right now.
Okay.
And then the whole NFT stuff that people are like spending massive amounts of money on pixelated pictures. I don't know. I don't know.
Hand-drawn cartoon that's worth $7 million.
Yeah, it seems like a bubble. I don't know. Where's the value?
I definitely think it's worth learning about for sure.
All right. Well, I'll be going over to your channel to check it out more, and you can educate me.
Right on.
I really hope you enjoyed that episode with Juliet. She, like I said, has a lot of experience, good and bad, with the military. And so I hope that if that's something that you guys found valuable and learned from her lessons there, you go support her on her YouTube channel, and you can find that link in the description. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode, and I will see you guys later. Peace.